for interventions per country to be shared by all NGOs briefing on that country. So here I have a list of speakers, and we will start with representatives of NGO from Nepal. And first NGO, it's Alliance. On my list is National Alliance of Women Human Rights Defenders. And the speaker is, I believe, Miss Justina. Yes, please.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Women human rights defenders are working to advance human rights, fundamental freedoms, ending discrimination, and structural violence, respectively. They play an important role in monitoring and promoting implementation of the concluding observations that has been recognized by the Committee on Elimination of Discrimination Against Women. They have been targeted, criticized, threatened, intimidated, surveilled, and harassed, including online, because of the gender and the work they do. At least 95% of the women defenders have been subjected to domestic violence, face reprisals, death threats, verbal abuse, and harassments, including against their family members and intimate partners by the state and non-state actors to delegitimize their work. Women defenders who identify as LBTQ persons, including trans men, sex workers, women's health workers, indigenous rights activists, historically marginalized women human rights defenders, women migrant workers, women impacted by conflict and poverty, women with disabilities, and drug users are often marginalized in increasing social stigma, increasing their exposure to violence and threats. In the light of the situation, we call the state's obligation of due diligence by addressing the key recommendations in line with CEDAW Convention Article 7, General Recommendations 30 and 35 respectively. Formulate resourced protection and security mechanisms that focuses on eliminating structural violence against women human rights defenders, including adoption of measures to prevent, investigate, and prosecute those responsible, including state actors, for the abuse and violence which should be replicated throughout federal, provincial, and local level governments. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And now we have Forum for Women Law and Development, and representative is Sabine Sheshta, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Though the Constitution prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex, there is no definition of discrimination against women in our law, due to which intersectional and the multiple forms of discrimination against women, especially faced by Dalit women, women with disabilities, LBTI, women from the religious minority, Muslim women, indigenous women, Madhesi women are yet to be addressed. Hence, Nepal need to adopt comprehensive definition of discrimination against women that addresses the issue of intersectionality and multiple discrimination. Despite ratifying the CEDAW in 1991 without any reservation, Nepal is still one of the amongst the 25 countries around the world that still discriminate women to confer their nationality on an equal basis with men. Hence, take immediate step to amend or repeal discriminatory provision in the Constitution, and also recognize the universal concept of birth registration and right of the single mother to register the birth of her child. Information is power, but women often lack the access of information and thus are unable to be benefited by the women's related programs and services. Hence, establishment of proper information dissemination mechanism at all levels for women, particularly ensuring compatible technology, including language such as Braille and the sign language for women with disabilities, and the information in mother tongue for the indigenous women. There is a lack of support and the protection mechanism which leads to less reporting of cases related to witchcraft allegation, child marriage, and bonded labor. And there is a contradiction between two laws, that is Civil Code and Criminal Code, with regard to the void the child marriage. Hence, the harmonization of Civil Code and Criminal Code so that all marriages below the minimum legal age are null and void ab initio, minors are not punished, and provided effective legal remedies and support mechanism to girls married young. Sexual and gender-based violence against women, and especially girls, are increasing and is being reported in media almost day-to-day basis. However, governments fail to address impunity for this violence. For example, one of the recent cases, almost 3 months have already passed since the rape and murder of Nirmala Pant in Kanchanpur. However, authorities have not yet been able to bring guilty to book, as there is
Yes, the time already ran out. So, but I kindly ask civil society to give your presentation statements in a more slow pace. Do not try to put more words just because there is no translation for them. So, okay, thank you very much. And now we have CAC Nepal, and representative is Tulsalata Amatia, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Respected committee members, good afternoon. Today I represent one of the survivors of discriminatory laws on citizenship. Since more than 20 years, we have been fighting for the equal citizenship right. Now we have new constitution 2015. But still there is a big gap between male and female. A Nepali woman who married to foreigner, she cannot transfer the citizenship to their children. But a Nepali man who married to foreigner, they have no problem at all. Even Nepali woman who married to Nepali man cannot transfer the citizenship without the presence of father. Similarly, there are millions of single women, sex workers, and LBTI who could not have and also transfer citizenship to their children. Our demand is that there should be no discrimination to have citizenship by the mother's name. In Article 16, any man and woman have the right to marry without any nationalities, but our constitution limited the choice of right to marry. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. National Indigenous Women's Forum and Representative Pahichan, please.
Madam Chair, we Consortium of Indigenous Women Organization is honored to present a statement about the situation of indigenous women and indigenous women with disability with prior recommendation. In Nepal, the mainstreaming women are recognized as a legal entity under the constitution, laws and policy. In contrast, we indigenous women and indigenous women with disability are not recognized. We suffer multiple discrimination based on race, ethnicity, gender identity, and disability. Concerning Article 7, no mechanism and data relating to representation of indigenous women and indigenous women with disability chosen through our own organization and communities. Our recommendation to the state is that it should adopt and ensure representation of indigenous women and indigenous women with disability in the constitution and the state mechanism. As a free chosen representative of our institution, recognize our right to self-determination in line with UNDRIP and Convention ILO 169. Concerning Article 10, the government of Nepal, the government education policy and practices do not address the structural barrier. We recommend that the state should recognize indigenous languages as the additional official languages, allocated 30.58% budget, enable accessible environment and mother tongue facilities in education. Article 11, the state criminalize customary economic activities such as production, distribution, and the sales of cultural alcoholic beverage and cow slaughter and micro-enterprise development for poverty alleviation have ignored customary knowledge and skills. Our recommendation to the state should repeal the provision of criminal code that criminalization customary practices of indigenous women. And it should be in line with the UNDRIP and ILO WCIP. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Now Lakshmi Nepal. This is Blind Women Association Nepal, please.
Madam Chair, I'm going to speak from Women with Disabilities perspective, WWDS. 1. Violence against women with disabilities. We don't have access to justice against violence. There is no provision of the certified sign language interpreters in the court. Similarly, government-run safe shelters are not accessible for women with disabilities. Sexual abuse to the girls with disabilities are heard, but they cannot reach up to the court because of the no clear mechanism on protecting these girls. Number 2, employment and economic opportunities. Government has program for economic empowerment of destitute women, but no provision of WWDS are included under it. We are not provided with ATM by the bank to hold the legal ownership of any property. We are asked for the guardianship. It is against our privacy in the economic related matter. In the lack of economic opportunities and social allowance, many WWDS are found in the street begging for their survival. Recommendation: sex education should be conducted in the schools for disabilities. Government urgently need to have sign language interpreters in the court, and cases of WWDS should go with the fast-track mechanisms. Accessibility should be ensured in the safe house. Participation of women with disabilities in the policy. State should conduct the livelihood programs in special consideration with the Dalit and indigenous women with disabilities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now floor is open for Durga Tapa from Blue Diamond Society, Mitini, Nepal, Federation of Sexual and Gender Minorities, Nepal. Please.
Thank you, Chair. I will speak about discrimination and violence against lesbian, bisexual, trans, and intersex women in Nepal. Article 1 and 2, non-discrimination and obligation to eliminate discrimination. The definition of the minorities in Constitution doesn't include LBTI women. That leads the group to face discrimination in each and every sector, including political participation. Recently passed 16 Fundamental Rights Bill failed to include the issues of LBTI except Safe Motherhood and Reproductive Health Right 2075. Article 16, family rights. Many LBTI women face violence within their own families and are still invisible and living stressful life. Recently passed Civil Code on Section 3 under Family Law, Chapter 1, marriage-related provision didn't recognize homosexual marriage, consequently affects the right to adopt child and property rights among couple relation. There is a clear need to recognize homosexual relationship and do necessary amendment on Civil Code to recognize family rights of LBTI people. Article 9, legal gender recognition. Despite the recent Supreme Court order to amend the Citizenship Act, it is not easy to receive citizenship card by transgender person, as authority asks for medical report or other gender conforming certificates. Nepal government should have provision to aware all government authorities and to access legal gender recognition easily without any condition. Article 11, employment. This group is unable to have employment opportunity as like other gender because there is no provision to apply for employment for trans-identified persons. Further, bill related to employment rights 2075 didn't include the issue of LBTI persons. There should be provision of equal employment opportunity and necessary amendment on Employment Rights Bill 2075. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Simran Sharshan will represent Yagriti Mahila Mahasangh, please.
Okay, good afternoon, Madam Chair. I'm representing female and transgender sex worker. The key issues are as follows. Regardless of discrimination of sex work in Nepal, female sex workers, including transgender sex workers, are marginalized and facing multiple forms of discrimination. Sex workers are being neglected by the community in any social function and occasion. They are being discriminated in education and employment, and their children are being humiliated by society. The law fails to distinguish between voluntary sex work and trafficking. As a result, the state misdirects resources into policing and punishing consensual sex work rather than identifying and supporting trafficking victims. Police harass and arrest sex workers for no reason. Because of this, sex workers cannot practice safe sex habits and have to face problems such as physical violence. The prevalence of HIV among sex workers is significantly high. Sex workers do not get proper health education and health care from government. They face discrimination by health workers. They face harassment by police for carrying condoms. They cannot afford regular blood tests and health checkups. Therefore, our recommendations are take measures to eliminate negative stereotypes, discrimination, and stigma against female and transgender sex workers, take measures to stop harassment and exploitation from police, employers, clients, and society, and provide them access to justice and rehabilitate in community, formulate a separate law to control sexual exploitation of female and transgender sex workers, ensure sex workers have access to HIV services, and expand sexual and reproductive health services, education, and labor protection throughout the country. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Feminist Dalit organization will be represented by Durga Sob, please.
Distinguished committee member, I am a Durga Sob from Feminist Dalit Organization FEDO, an organization which is monitoring the situation of 2 million Dalit women in Nepal. I would like to address the issue under the Article 7. The political representation of the Dalit women has overall increased, mostly on the lower level in the Wada Committee, 6,567 Dalit women representing 22% of the female population. However, on the higher level post of the Deputy Vice Chair, only 16 Dalit women have seat among the 553 women, or only 2%. Those women in lower post continue to undergo discrimination, humiliation from the so-called upper caste. Therefore, finding it difficult to address the need of their fellow Dalit in general and Dalit women in particular, as most of these local units are not allocating sufficient fund rather than diverting to the physical construction. Their plight are also ignored by the local level unit meeting, which are largely dominated by the so-called upper caste male. Many of them have lacked skill and leadership to assert their rights and entitlement. I would like to bring here the example of a woman, Dalit woman Buddhimaya Biswakarma, is 45, a mother of 3 children. She was successfully in obtaining the justice from the beating against her and her daughter from so-called upper caste neighbors, which while fetching water from a public tap, she underwent strong humiliation and returning to the village, becoming mentally ill, and her 2 aged 7 and 14 daughters drop out of the school. Despite the claim of the government of Nepal to have 33% representation of women in the political field, has not been able to provide rescue, relief, and rehabilitation support that thousands of Buddhimaya that we have in Nepal.
Thank you very much. Yes.
No, I have 1 minute. No,
it's over.
Sorry,
it's the minute for Daniela Trefe, representative from Stop AGM, please.
Thank you. I'm an intersex person speaking on behalf of my Nepali peers who can't afford traveling to Geneva. As shown in our joint NGO report, intersex genital mutilation remains a growing practice in Nepal, including partial clitoris amputation. Infanticide and child abandonment are frequent. There are reports of expulsion of adolescents from their families, of forced marriage to avoid conspicuousness, of bullying and abuse, preventing intersex children from attending school. In 2016, CRC urged Nepal to eliminate harmful practices on intersex children. To this day, the state party fails to act. Also, in its replies to the LOI, Nepal simply ignored the questions on intersex. Intersex people demand protection from harmful practices and the full enjoyment of human rights. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we are moving to Republic of the Congo, and Germine Onanga will represent the National Committee on Women, please.
Excellence.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ms. Onanga. I'm chair of the National Committee for the Defense of Women's Rights in the Congo, or CONADEF, and for the protection of human rights and solidarity. We're a member of the Coalition of the International Criminal Court and Ambassador for Peace. As regards the representation of women in decision-making positions, we have 11.5% in Parliament, 22.9% in the Senate, 22.85% in the government, 12% in the ministries, and 18.82% in the various departments, 23.5%. But we are lacking a representation of women within the United Nations. We would like to appeal to our government on this issue. The President of the Republic had reassured me already that he had ratified all of the conventions pertaining to women's rights. In light of all of this, the government has just signed a decree to set up an advisory council on women's rights and on other texts on women's rights to land. The situation of widows in Congo is very precarious, and a group of women came to me as chair of this committee to report on the issues that they have with inheritance because they are facing persecution. Government must ensure that a law is implemented to ensure that there is no violence against women in order to uphold the respect and dignity of women. Of course, women are the source of all life. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now the floor is open.